Welcome to EPG Pathshala. Myself, Dr. P.K. Bhattacharya, Fellow Knowledge Management Division TERI, will tell you statistics and its reporting techniques for library science and its usefulness, how it is useful. Statistics is a scientific way of representing data and analyzing data so that the librarians find whatever their activity they are doing, so these activities should be of most relevant and showable to the funding body, the organizations. Actually what happens, library do not have funds, so they are getting donation from either parent organization or any funding bodies so that they can perform their activities. Now whenever anybody is investing money, so he or she wants, or the organization or maybe the parent organization or universities, whatever you call, so they basically want some or the other way of getting a result. Now this result library can show when they apply statistical methods in collecting data of libraries, of users who visits libraries, and find out how best library is performing. So in this particular module, I will tell you what are the statistical methods, how the data are collected, and how data are represented, and how it is beneficial for libraries to use statistics, and what kind of statistical representation should be made in a library statistics process. Need of library statistics are necessary for the effective management. Now why we say it, as I was telling you that library need to show that they are basically doing some value added activities. How this value addition can be judged, that is judged by finding out how many library visitors are visiting the libraries, what are the usage of library resources, and how these resources are being utilized, and to what extent these resources are updated or validated by the users. So that is why effective management of library needs library statistics. Statistics are aimed at decision makers for strategic planning, because when a report of that kind of thing is submitted before the management, say for example to the vice chancellor of an university, so vice chancellor will see how this library is performing and to what extent their budget allocation should be added, or which stream or in which of the project of library this should be supported or not. So that kind of decision a library committee can take. Usage of library collection and services can be measured using statistical method. Data about the library use indicates value of libraries. As I was telling you, if a person or if management body can find out that they have 20,000 books, out of that maybe only 7,000 books are used and rest are not used documents, so they might want that, okay, we won't be purchasing print volumes next time, because more or less only 7,000 print resources are in use, and most of the resources are utilized by our researcher which are available online. So they will be spending more money in online procurement. So that is how value of libraries or the strategic decision making can take place. Previous and current library activities can be compared. So previously, maybe how much time you will be you used to spend procuring books. Now after digital documents have come up and less number of printed documents you are basically purchasing so as processing, so therefore you are basically getting less manpower occupied for the book processing process. So that is how current library activities are far more advanced and maybe logically streamlined over the previous activities or previous year's activities. So that type of measurement can be done. Evaluation of staff performance, because earlier one person used to take maybe half an hour for cataloging or classifying a book. Now a person, after LOC's available catalog, taking only 10 minutes. So that is how you are saving 20 minutes of staff time. So that means your staff performance have indicated manifold. So this is how need of library statistics are justified when we apply statistical tools to measure the data available in different form in different activities of libraries. Sources of library statistics. So almost every section of a library has scope of generating statistical data. When I mean that, that means in the acquisition section, in the circulation section, periodical section, reference section, everywhere. For example, in the acquisition section, you can find out how much money you have spent for book purchase, online, offline, or maybe how much book you have collected as gratis over the last years. So that type of documents you can find out. Circulation, in the circulation area, basically on a monthly basis, how many people have approached your library and issued books, how many books are usage, how many times a single book is used, or several type of such circulation documents. Circulation statistics can be generated for library use. In the periodical section, periodicals used to be purchased in print form. Now both print and online, mostly online, are being purchased. Now how much percentage of money is spent on online purchasing, how much in offline or rather print purchasing, which vendor you are purchasing most, and what are the different kind of publications you are taking, in which sector, how many publications are coming, whether that is increased in last year or not, and how many of them have increased over the past year. So all these sort of statistics are available or are generated in the periodical section. In the reference section, you can measure the number of reference books and most importantly, user satisfaction rate. In this particular thing, you can probably take a survey of users, how much they are satisfied on any of the library services or circulation or the library online services developed, and the kind of behavior your library staff are doing, whether that has improved in past year over past year or not. So any type of such statistical data you can find out in the reference section, and all are generated. So these are some of the examples only I have told you. There are plenty of such statistical data can be found out, and believe me, in each and every section and every activity of library are measurable. Only thing you need to know how these can be measured. Quality of library statistics: know your target population at periodic intervals. So basically here what I mean, that every library has a list of population to whom they are served. That is, population here means users you are serving. Now what happens when in a university, probably you can say that library serve to the entire student, entire faculty, and many of the people who approaches university, and also the academic counselors of that university. So all of them you are supporting from your library services, so they are coming under your population. Success of library statistics depend on accurate and timely data. Now, success of library statistics means whenever you are taking any timely data, so that means that data has to be accurate. Accurate in the sense that how many people visited library. So that type of data should not be manipulated, so that you get a actual result, what actual satisfaction rate of your users. So that thing basically is providing value addition to library. Data should be collected at macro and micro level. This means at the macro level, you are probably at the gate, you have put a counter, or your guard maybe making entry of how many people have entered the library. So that gives you your number of visitors in the library. So that I call as macro data. In the micro level, you can find out how many of these visitors have actually used library, how many of them have read newspaper only, how many of them have searched the databases, how many of them, even you can find out how many of them have gone and searched energy literature, or maybe solar energy document. That kind of micro data also you can find out from library. Questionnaires need to be prepared and populated. What is required in a usage statistics, that you develop a questionnaire. Based on that questionnaire, you collect data from the users. So these questions or these answers then tabulated in a format, and you can judge from there that whether your library is performing well, whether your statistical data are comparable with the past years, and how much better performance your library is giving this year. And maybe in the investment part, what kind of investment you have made on the book purchase last year, and how much money you are spending this year. So that all these types of data you can find out after populating and getting response from the questionnaire. Larger the sample, accurate will be your results. Here it means, now I have told you about the population. Sample is when that we call it strata also in statistical terms. So that means basically only a portion of that population will be studied actually. And maybe you have total 30 faculty members and maybe 500 students. Now out of these 30 faculty members you have studied 10, and that 10 could be of different streams. Of the 500 students, you have studied only 50, and they also from different streams. So that type of sample I am saying. So normally in statistical terms, 10 to 12% of sampling is important to get any quality result. Grouping, formatting and representation of data is crucial in reporting library statistics. So this means when you are putting data, circulation data means all data like book usage, number of books issued, number of books returned, time taken for one book to issuing, and time taken for one book to be processed and put it in shelf, how much time you took for shelving the books. All this kind of data should be grouped under circulation, and then you format that data and present it in a tabular form or a graphical form, so that your library statistics becomes more relevant. Types of library statistics. Now there are two types of studies we do. One is use studies and another one is user studies. In the use studies, what we do, that we basically carry out the type of usage has been conducted by the users for library resources. That means now how much use for any Science Direct database, how much how many times a book is issued, how many times a book has been read. So that kind of data basically is your use data. Whether user studies is basically you are asking users whether they are satisfied with the library services, how frequently they get library services, how much time library people have taken to provide library services, whether they were approachable or not, whether they have shown indifferent attitude or not. So that type of data basically are user studies, means where user is providing any kind of comments on your library services. In general, use data basically useful to improve your operational efficiency, because when you know because when you know that there is, hardly only, 10 times a book is issued in a university environment, so that means that book has, less relevance, or maybe a book has not been issued over the last 3 or 5 years time interval, so that means that book has lost its relevance. New edition have come, so this will help you to weed out that book. So that way you can basically do self rectification as well as use the, library space much better than before. Similarly, for example, your library users have commented that, the reading section has less lighting, so that means you have to increase, or maybe the ambience is not good, so you have to increase lighting as well as the ambience of ambience of the library. So that is basically user studies. Community feedback you can take in user studies, used in improving planning of administrative processes in libraries. User frequency can be improved by, doing some out of the box thinking. User studies indicate whole range of factors for individual information collection, whereas on the use area, most used resources will be given more priority. Maybe they can be shown in whenever you will be entering in the library in a different, rack, or differently. Maybe you can take some of the books out of them, and, put it in a rack and give it, caption like most used books. Allocation of funding you can accordingly think of, like, if your online journals are used most and offline journals are less, then you may cut down some funding in the offline journal and put those funding in online journal, so that your users have better access to all these resources. Now I will tell you in brief concept of statistics, because whenever you will be applying statistics, so there are certain things you should remember about statistics. Basics of any statistics book will be of great help to understand much better. Statistics is basically a methodology for collecting, analyzing, interpreting, and drawing conclusion from the information. Now, in this particular thing, always remember that you are basically using statistics as a tool to represent your data. Statistics as such cannot provide you any conclusion, that you have to find out from the available data, or from the data available in the table or graph. So based on that, you have to find your own conclusion, and that is what basically all library researchers are also doing whenever they take help of any library statistical methods. So why we should use in statistics in library? Statistics can summarize and simplify large amount of numerical data. Basically, if you see that, for any circulation data or maybe library usage data, if you are regularly monitoring, so you will be getting enormous number of data, maybe thousands and thousands of data, say, that you need to, incorporate in a single data set to get a logical result of whether that particular article or journals or maybe databases or books are relevant for your library or not, and how much value that is been added to your library, whether your user is using that library or not. So for that, you have to summarize this, and statistics is a most useful tool in that. Using statistics can draw conclusions about data that I have already explained. Statistics may reveal underlying patterns in data not normally observable. Basically, what happens when you have, data in hand today, and maybe after 1 month you are taking again data, and maybe another 6 months you have data. So by the time you get 6 months data, you forgot what has happened in the past. So basically, whenever you are putting it in a graphical form, so that clearly shows that yes, in January, user who approached your library was less, or during the exam month, students who approached library was maximum. Your faculties, maybe your science faculties are using your library more than your arts faculties, that kind of pattern can come up from statistical observations. Statistics, if used correctly, can basically provide you a handy tool to establish value of your library, but if it is used incorrectly, or maybe manipulated data are put in the statistics, so that can reveal a very bad result, or can have bad repercussion on your decision, library decision making or strategic planning as well. Now we'll understand some statistical terms. Population and sample, I have just informed you, in my previous slides. So basically, population is the entire number of people available in library domain. Whereas when you are taking only a part of that for study, so they call as sample or strata. Variables are only those things which can be basically change with time. So for example, the height of a people, marital status, weight of people, so these are changeable things, so they are variable things. Similarly, library perspective, how many people visiting in different months, they are changing, so they are basically all are variables. Variables are quantitative and qualitative variables. Now, quantitative variables means those are having numerical data, and qualitative variables are those are basically normally do not have numerical figure. However, they can be of yes, no, or maybe male, female visitors, that kind of thing. Now, under quantitative variable, you can have discrete and continuous, both type of variable. Discrete means when there is no continuity of data, and continuous data means when you are taking a continuous data. For example, in Science Direct databases, you are using it continuously over and over the years. So that will give you a continuous data over the, and you can also find out in the last year how many visitors or rather users, or how many usage of Science Direct data you got, and in the this year how many you are getting, so you can compare that, and so you can establish the increased cost of this database maybe this year. In the discrete form, for example, January 500 people visited your library, in the February maybe 300 people, in the March maybe 700 people. So these are discrete data. So every month, or similarly day wise, if you take statistics, they are also discrete data. So this is how variables are represented in statistics. Types of variables, if you see, in the qualitative variables, we can have nominal scale. While we are measuring this variable, we can measure it in nominal scale as well as ordinal scale. In the nominal scale, data are unordered. Maybe you want to put library data in the increasing order, or maybe you want data that 2014 data should come first, and then 2013, 12, 11, that way. If you are thinking that, so that is basically an ordered data, which is basically an ordinal scale data. However, if 2000 data coming in somewhere in between and 2011 coming in the front, so that means so they are unordered or unorganized data, so that is nominal scale data. In the quantitative variable, you can get ratio scale data, like measurement along a continuous scale, where you can begin from zero, that is your usage can be zero for a book, or maybe 50 or 100 for that particular book, or maybe something different. So your data can even have a zero value. But interval scale data is something where same as the ratio value, but they cannot have a zero value. So such as number of chairs in the library, number of tables in the library, number of books in a library, they cannot have zero value. So there must be some value of the books, number of books procured in that year. So similarly, temperature data, so if you are measuring what temperature you have within the library. Frequency distribution is another way which is very useful tool. Means whenever you are getting data, you are categorizing them under certain thing using the ordinary scale data. So in such case, whenever you have some category and you have some value within that category, so they called frequency of that category or that class. So you can very well calculate relative frequency by using the formula that when you frequency of the class is divided by total number of observation and multiplied with 100, so you are getting basically relative frequency of that, and relative frequency can be added up to the maximum 100%, or you can change it to 1, so then rest of the things will come as a point factor. Cumulative frequency is obtained by summarizing the frequencies of all classes. So that is what I am saying. It could be 100% or maybe 1. So in that case, rest of the data will be in the point scale. Now, how a frequency should be distributed, I am just giving you an example in this slide. So it shows that 40% have visited in the library, and they are either regular visitor or monthly, weekly, occasional visitors. So whenever we are using statistical table, so basically we are putting users in one column, and rather their frequency of visit in one column, and the type of statistics, their frequency in other column, and the percentage if we are calculating in another column. So total number of frequency you find 40, and out of that in the regular visitors are 16, monthly visitors are 18. So basically percentage wise if you calculate, so they are coming out, that is out of 40 total number, 16 is basically a regular visitor. So they are basically for making 40% of the total amount of visits. So this is how basically you are calculating percentage in that column. Now I told you earlier also that in the statistical section we can basically provide people about the we represent result only, not conclusion. Now conclusion, how you can draw from this table? You draw conclusion like that, out of the total visit in this particular library, in this particular month, mostly regular and monthly users can be found, because they are making 40% and 45%, that is total 85% of the total number of visits. They are making regular or monthly intervals. So that is a conclusion I am drawing based on this statistics. So this is how statistical data help you to draw some conclusion. Remember, conclusion is your own, you have to develop, but statistical table help you to draw that conclusion. Quantitative variables. For discrete quantitative variables, the data can be summarized as per the qualitative variables, whereas you will be having a lot of quantitative terms that you can basically list down in the tables. If the discrete variables can have a lot of different values, the data must be grouped into classes. Find the minimum maximum value of this variable, choose class intervals as per your requirement. Sometime mostly we put it in equal intervals, but sometime we can vary this means length of the intervals also if data are very minimal. Count the number of observations under each of this frequency and then calculate the relative frequency to find out a justifiable logical answer against your representative data. There is a term central tendency in statistics. So 3 central tendency are most important, which is mean, median and mode. While mode is a distribution is simply defined as the most frequent and common score. So in the last example of 40 library user, we can see that the monthly and the regular users used to be the most frequently visitor in library, of which monthly users having the most number of paid most number of visits. So that becomes the mode for this particular scale. Median is basically the score that divides the distribution or the frequency distribution into halves. So this is better understandable if we are taking, order distribution like 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 8, 9, 9, this 6, number of usage of books. So then the median will be n plus 1 by 2. That means n is here 7 plus 1, that is 8 by 2, that is fourth number of distribution. When you organized it in a synchronized manner, that is fourth is basically your fifth number of value, 5 value. So that is basically your median. Now if you have a in this case you can find out the median for any odd number of data distribution. If there is a data distribution of even number, then you have to get the half will be coming as 3.5 as shown in the next example, and then 3.5 means the 3 and 4th. So that is the two value you have to take, and then you have to average it out, and the value comes 4.5. So this is how basically you can calculate the odd as well as even distribution median of for any frequency distribution. Median is basically arithmetic mean, where the total number of available variable value divided by the number of observations you made. So that is basically your arithmetic mean, and that is also called the mean of the document. Variance and standard deviations are other two factor where if there is a mean value or median value and how much value are being distributed within that class. So how much they are basically varying from the central tendency, that can be calculated using variance and standard deviation. So using the formula that I have shown in this slide. Now come to data collection method. In library, we normally have three types of data collection method, that is observation method, interview method, and questionnaire based method. In the observation method, that is a field based method where library staff actually goes to the user. What he is doing is observing and taking notes in his own diary, and then find out from this at the later day or maybe after a month, cumulatively find out how many times that particular book is used, or what was users actions when they have reached the library racks, or whether they have found out any kind of difficulty, how many users have found that difficulty in searching the library databases, that type of, which ultimately when statistically calculated, so give you a very useful clue that whether there is a problem in searching that database. So that becomes your conclusion, and you then can find out a useful way to prepare a note how to search that database. So that type of useful conclusion can be drawn from observation method. Interview method is basically where one-to-one interview is being taken care of. In the interview method, the library professional or the librarian ask user how much satisfied they are, or whether they are finding library resources useful, how much useful it is, and how much time saving is basically happening because of this new service developed. So similar type of questions can be asked, where in most of the cases there is no predefined question. Basically during the discussion question comes up, and the author not the author, the library user basically, so he or she basically give answer to your query, and you take a note and frame your data based on that, and ultimately calculate that data using such statistical tools and tables, and find out what best should be done, whether you need to change the library services or component of library services, whether user wants or whether need assessment when you are doing, whether user needs some kind of new services, what should be component of these services, whether ambience is correct or not. So all these type of information you can find out from the interview method. In the questionnaire based method, basically crisp and relevant questions are asked, and this can be taken periodic interval also. That questions are basically populated among the users and then regularly followed up to find out whether these questions are of importance, whether the question you are asking basically providing you some good inputs and users interview you are getting. So all these methods are basically, when clubbed together, provide you some important data collection method, and you get lots of data collected through this. In any modern library, all these three methods are used, but most probably questionnaire based method is the most popular in library statistics. Even library researchers, students, when they are conducting any survey or or any research study they want to undertake, so they also use this questionnaire based method. Steps of developing a questionnaire: define research objective, select a sample, and then design questionnaire which is basically relevant for that population or the sample. And remember that you have to use very crisp question and use Likert scale, where quantifiable data you can get so that you can put later on in the statistical format. Use a scale rather than a one-time test when measuring attitude. Here we mean that now you are taking some data, and later on basically you can find out again using that same scale and take data on a repeated interval and find out whether attitude is changing or not, whether satisfaction rate is changing or not. So that kind of thing. Now once your questionnaire is ready, pilot testing is another important stage, where you basically populate your question to 2-3 identified people whom you feel is a knowledgeable person who can help you to develop this questionnaire. So they might ask for certain changes in the questionnaire, and you carry out these changes and make your questionnaire foolproof for wider dissemination. So this is basically pilot testing. After that, you write a cover letter telling that your name etc. will be concealed. Nobody will be coming to know whatever you are putting, marks you are putting in the Likert scale for any of our services, so that your user becomes free enough to put some answer there. Following up of the non-respondent is another important step, because you are asking people here that whether they want to participate in this questionnaire based approach process. If they want to participate, so basically they need to fill up this questionnaire, and when they fill up this questionnaire, so you get more value, and when you get more data in hand, so most likely your data will be more accurate and more logically you can take decision. Analyzing questionnaire data requires that data has to be classified or grouped first, then formatted, and once formatting is done, you basically try to frame those questions in the form of a table. And since you have used Likert scale, you now got quantifiable data, you put quantities there, and under each of this quantity you get some distribution, and from this frequency distribution you can calculate mean, median, mode, standard deviation, etc., etc., to find out your logical value. Data organization is an important criteria when you have got enormous data. In any library, on a monthly basis, you get most of the data in an enormous quantity. Each individual piece of data is called an observation, and when these observations are grouped together, classified, and represented in a data set, so they are called data matrix. Data set are the value of variables of sampling units, and then value of these quantitative variables are coded by assigning some numbers that you are getting from Likert scale 1, 2, 3, 4, or maybe daily, weekly, monthly, occasionally, whatever you say. Measurement collected from sampling unit forms a row in a data matrix, and all the values of a particular valuable form a column. Data presentation and format, when you think of, so depict the data correctly so that it has minimum distortion, and you have to put lot of concentration this time, because any wrong data input here will spoil your entire study. Present many numbers in a small place, because you are putting them in the form of a table and later on you will probably make a graph. Summarize large data into a coherent form. Encourage visual comparison among data elements. Have a reasonably clear purpose. You have to identify the format accordingly, because otherwise choosing wrong format might spoil your data. And then statistical tables, verbal descriptions wherever necessary. So you put incoherent with the available data, so that your data set becomes a much more logical order. So this is how basically a format is look like. Here in the column we have a user column, number of users, and then percentage of total users. So here we have classified users into 5 different categories, and under each of the user you can find out numbers, and then percentage of number you can calculate. So this is one data set you have got. Then another data set could be users information requirement. So here are total 7 varieties of information required by the users, and in each of the category you can find out, and from there the mode and you can find out, and that mode value becomes the priority information you are providing, and from there you can basically think of where data is coming less, means you need to do some improvement in those areas. So this is how you are drawing your conclusion from the available data formats. Here are some more data format. Through questionnaire we have collected such data like user satisfaction level. Users could be satisfied completely, or maybe mostly, or maybe not satisfied at all. So if users say they are mostly satisfied with the services, so that means your library is performing well. If most of your users say they are not satisfied, or maybe often satisfied, so conclusion is that your user is grossly not satisfied with your library services, so you need to do something extra. User information requirement, accordingly you can chart here in the graph given, and basically at a later stage you can show them in the bar graph as well, so which will help user to, or the reader to find out more easily, or your the financier, or maybe the supervisor, to find out how your library is performing. So these are types of charts: the bar graph, pie chart, histogram, line graph you use to get different types of format for data presentation, and it requires a lot of persuasiveness for you to get good quality of data to be put in this format. And whenever your data is correctly represented, so any graph you can prepare using Excel or SPSS or any other statistical packages, and such kind of presentation basically help users, supervisor or decision makers to understand at a go that the performance of library is good, bad, or value of library, whether it is up to the mark, need to do something extra, whether your investment needs increasement, whatever way you say, so you can use these formats. So application of statistics in the library, basically I have already throughout this presentation I have told you how it is to be used in library, but here is basically summarizing the same. Librarians are practicing statistics for many years, but maybe unknowingly or knowingly, now the time has come then each and every library has to prove his worth, whether it is a academic library, whether it's a special library or maybe a public library, that the money they are spending, their library's value is basically increasing or worth of that much of spending. So basically, statistics play a crucial part in these times for measuring your library's performance and value. Collected data can be entered into statistical packages. As I have told you, tabular data can be represented in different reporting format, mean, median, mode, and other frequency distribution like standard deviation, etc., used to represent library data such as user satisfaction, your number of user visits, etc., can be calculated. Statistics is an economic tool that helps libraries to measure the efficiency, performance, and service quality to define library value. So that is the buzzword today. So library statistics play a very crucial role, as we can see throughout this presentation, and each library up to their level best should start taking the different kind of collecting different kind of data, both their use statistical data and the user statistical data, to get a quality improved library and making their libraries value showable, understandable before the parent body or the funding body, whosoever is basically investing in the library.